Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cosmic Conversations on the Conscious Awakening Network. I'm your host, Sheila Seppi, and I want to welcome you to tonight's episode because this month my co host is Maria Martinez. Now, some of you may have heard Maria when she made a presentation a couple months ago, and I was just so enamored. I just thought, man, I would love to have her to come and co-host, and she said yes. So she will be with us all month, and I'll bring her up in just a moment. And tonight she has invited Jules Arnes, and she's going to talk a little bit about Jules, and she's going to talk about mastering quantum manifestation. But before I bring either of these ladies up, I do want to introduce you one more time to Maria. So, Maria, I'm going to bring you up with me as I introduce you. So, hello and welcome.
Hello, everyone. It's so great to be here with all of you.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Now, guys, I don't know if you remember or not, but Maria is a psychic medium. She is a human potential activator, a wealth consciousness advocate, a master health and wellness coach, a seven-figure coach, a medical intuitive, a speaker, an author, and a podcaster. And so she also guides and trains and supports women entrepreneurs to reclaim their power, to reconnect to the divine within themselves. She also helps to embody their sacred feminine and unlock their full human potential and activate their soul wealth to create their life by design, full of grace and joy and impacted with abundance and fulfillment. Now, she also facilitates a very deep, multidimensional, transformational services. She also helps with healing trauma, removing money blockages, and rewiring powerful beliefs. She releases ancestral and karmic contracts. She clears poverty consciousness, activates the divine DNA to unleash the divine human perfect health, prosperity, and the courage to authentically express yourself unapologetically while creating your empire and generating wealth. I think your phone's going to probably ring off the hook after that. So, Maria, thank you so much for being here with us. And let's go ahead and bring up Jules. Hey, Jules, how are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, it's awesome to have you here. So, Maria's going to go ahead and introduce you, and I'll step off for just a moment, but I'll be right back.
Well, it is my pleasure to introduce Jules, and thank you, Sheila, for forwarding all the wonderful information that Jules shared with us. Jules is the founder and creator of BioQuantum and the owner of the Accelerated Ascension Academy. With over 3 decades of experience as a quantum healer, Jules holds multiple accreditations, including QHHT, Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique, Touch for Health, Reiki Master, and a Holistic Practitioner license. She also completed a 6-year apprenticeship with Lakota Medicine Woman, deepening her expertise in holistic and quantum healing. Jules is also a published author of 3 books and a sought after speaker, having presented at prestigious events such as Dave Asprey's Biohacking Conference, UCLA, Body, Mind, Spirit Expo, and upcoming at the Conscious Life Expo. Through her work, she continues to pioneer advancements in quantum healing and personal ascension, guiding others to unlock their highest potential. Welcome, Jules.
Thank you, Maria. So good to see you.
Well,
So,
tell us,
thank oh,
yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna, I know this is a lot of information, but it still doesn't do you justice. Just wanted to ask you to share a little bit more about yourself and what it is to be you and expressing the work that you do.
Thank you. Well, first, I have some exciting news that we just launched BioQuantum, the book. So we just had it published and it's now available on Amazon and a bunch of other platforms. So that was a very long road to get it to a place of publication. And so we're super excited about that. So it's bioquantum. And bioquantum really is my life's work. I've been um, I would say on my spiritual journey since the age of 16. It probably started before that, but that's when I really started to deeply study the light body and the ascension of not just consciousness, but through the body, like on a cellular level. And that's my passion, is to tap into the body as a multidimensional experience, and to experience the body as the quantum field, and to hold consciousness in the multidimensional body so that we can experience what we are beyond really what science is studying. And even on you can actually get a degree now in quantum biology, but it's still very limited to what we actually are. And so we can use all of the science and know that it's there to ascend beyond. And that's really what my passion is to see reality, to see what's been studied, and then allow ourselves to move into consciousness beyond that.
Awesome. Now, Jules, if you would take just a moment, for those people who might be unfamiliar with the terms quantum healing or even quantum, how would you define that, and what makes it, more or just distinct from other healing modalities?
I think like when you really think about what a healing modality is, it's about bringing the body back into balance, the mind into harmony, and that it works together energetically or through frequency. And quantum healing is really no different. I would say what for me is different is that we start to experience the body on a multidimensional level. A lot of times when we go into healing the body, we're taught to actually leave our body consciously to go somewhere else that is in this higher frequency. And I say do the opposite. It's actually go deeper within and bring our consciousness into the DNA, to where we're actually connecting to the source field, the source intelligence that's already within us. Because source intelligence is transcribed in our DNA. Science has already proven that this is true. And all we're doing is we're going in and connecting to that frequency, because it is a very specific frequency. You can actually measure it at 963 hertz. And when we attune our consciousness to the body on a DNA level, we start to experience what we are on a quantum level, which just means that we start to tap into an intelligence that's universal.
Awesome. Now, I know that you said that, this is kind of like your passion, but was there one moment in time that just really stood out and you said, oh my gosh, this is it? This is it.
I feel like I've had a couple of those moments, really. I would say that my journey, because I started studying at the age of 16, and when my best friend Rob passed away in 2015, and I was given the alchemy for Ormus, and I started ingesting Ormus. Some of you, I see familiar faces here, but I really do say that there was life before Ormus and there was life after Ormus. And when I started ingesting Ormus and really tapping into the DNA, I had a spontaneous healing of my spine. And I have just, I would say, a lot of different kinds of miracles since then. But what it did is I brought a multidimensional element into my body, and I started to experience my body as multidimensional. And when that starts to happen, everything gets really fast, including the awakening of your consciousness and expanding beyond, whether you want to call it the matrix or the programmed body. I call it, right now, we're really only experiencing about 8% maybe of what our body is actually capable of. And when we start to tap into those other 10 strands of DNA that I would say most science isn't really looking at, where like everything that we study is form. And even on a quantum level, they're looking at particles and how they're relating, but we're not looking beyond what can be studied. And that's where the magic happens.
Awesome. Thank you. Maria, did you want to ask
I
any
do.
questions? Because
I
I've
have
got a list.
I have a question that is coming up, and I also get this question often myself. The question is, how do you know you're in the frequency? And so, how would you describe that for people?
That's an interesting question. And I personally don't think it's hard. I think we all know what it feels like when we're in the frequency, and we all know what it feels like when we're not. But then I think the place that we struggle is that when we're not, how do we get back into it? But for me, the frequency is is very still. There's no high, like, if you think about what when you're like high on frequency, you might be high on frequency, and but your consciousness isn't fully attuned, and you're not grounded within the body in that space. When you're in the frequency, it's quiet, it's still, it's you could almost say expansive, but there's very little thought, and it's pure. And I think that that's a really easy way of knowing, because if we're wrapping our thoughts and we're saying, I'm having a spiritual experience, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and we're having those kind of thoughts, we're not in the frequency. It's when we're just very calm and silent, and the energy is super pure, that's when we're in the frequency. And so many of us have been told, or maybe through experience, just because we haven't practiced it long enough, that we can't function in that frequency. And the opposite is actually true, that we can function at a very, very high level when we're there. And because we're not having our normal way of thinking, it can feel a little strange to operate from that space, but it's very, very doable, and it's actually more on that level of perfection than maybe we would think.
Thank
Awesome.
you. I have one more follow-up question that is coming up. So, we are frequency, everything is frequency. And another question that I often get asked is, can I just take the frequency, like take the frequency of Arnes or whatever I'm recommending? Would that be just as effective? Or do I have to take the physical supplement or the physical yeah,
Uh,
element?
Everything, I would say no. And I really do feel like that's the direction that we're going.
Mhm.
That's, I have what I call DMT codes, and each code releases a specific frequency. And they're all in the frequency of 963. They're just doing different things. And so, for instance, code number 1 has vitamin A, but it's the frequency of vitamin A. But the way that the code is working is it's actually releasing that frequency from the DNA, from that source frequency that's transcribed in the DNA, so that the body can start to experience what it is to have vitamins on a multidimensional level. Because right now we're experiencing what it is to nourish our bodies from matter to matter. And there's a whole nother level where our body can start to actually just release a frequency, and we don't actually have to ingest food. And we're all going to get there eventually. And a lot of people are already starting to experience that. And so we're all worried about our food not having enough nutrients in it, and the soil being depleted. And all we have to do is ask, release the frequency of these vitamins within my body, and that frequency will turn on in our body, because we are the most advanced operating system that there is. So if you want to experience Ormus, you absolutely can ask for that frequency to be released. And then all you really have to do is learn to how hold consciousness in that frequency so that you have the experience of what that frequency is doing, and then also have the experience of what your body is doing, so that you're not focused on the programmed reality that's locking us in to having to bring something from outside of ourselves into our body. And we're actually attuning our consciousness to the frequency that's being released. And I call that the divine operating system, or DMT, which stands for divine molecular technology, because in that frequency, anything is possible. Like, we can know anything, we can release whatever frequency we want, and we can have any experience. How we're holding consciousness in the purity, going back to that, how do we know if we're in the frequency? How the pure our thoughts, I don't even really like to use that word. I'm going to say the pure our relationship, or the pure we're able to attune our consciousness to that frequency, will really allow us to have the experience outside of what we've been programmed to experience.
Nice. Now you're talking about Ormus. So are you creating Ormus products? Are you ingesting? And can you share a little bit about what Ormus actually is?
Yes, so ORMUS stands for orbited rearranged unidentified substance, and also you may hear it as ORME, which is orbited rearranged monoatomic element. So it's an element that is a fifth dimensional element. It's in a spin state. If you haven't heard of ORMUS, I strongly recommend studying it. I'm actually going to have another book coming out where I wrote a book about Ormus, and it's actually one of the things that my friend Rob, when he passed away, our agreement was that I would follow him, and I did. So I followed him, my consciousness, connect to his consciousness on the other side. And after about a month of following him, I met a frequency where there was other states of consciousness. There was actually 12 states of consciousness, which I ended up calling the Council of Light, even though there was no light. That's just the name I gave them. They never have actually given me their name, and I've never asked, and I've kept it really pure, because to give it a name, it actually, for me, it creates an identity, and I just like to keep it in that really clean space. But the council, because we need to name them, gave me the alchemy of Ormus. Ormus has been around since the Egyptian years. It used to be called food of the gods. They used to eat it for eternal life. And I actually know some people in my lifetime that have gone long stints where that's the only thing that they ingested, and were able to get to very, very high states of consciousness.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. Now, how are you using Ormus?
We have different elixirs. So right now, I believe we have 3 or 4 on the website. The alchemy is always the same, but because it is a fifth dimensional element, it is a conscious element, you can attune it. So what we do is we use scalar technology to put specific frequencies into the Ormuses, and they all are doing something a little bit different. So we have one that's specifically more focused on opening the pineal gland and connecting to higher consciousness and starting to tap into the quantum body. We have one that we actually, as a community, we did a DMT journey where we actually opened up vortexes within the DNA and ascended all the nutrients that we need to have through the body and turned it on those frequencies. So it's more focused on healing. And then we also have one that is all around dissolving timelines. So they're very similar in that they're all Ormus based, but they're just doing different things to connect consciousness to the ascended body.
So I know that you're talking about your friend a lot, but I'm wondering, did your Lakota medicine apprenticeship have any influence on the direction that you've taken? Have you incorporated some of those teachings?
I love this question, and I've never had this question, and it lights me up that you asked this. Because yes, so my Eva White Desert Eagle was her name, and she was very against doing any sort of psychedelics in order to reach that higher state of consciousness. And so we did it through sweat lodges and ceremonies and that sort of stuff. But she was the first one to teach me how to release DMT naturally, because when that frequency is released in the chemical of DMT is released from the pineal gland, it does bring you into a very high state of consciousness, and you do see beyond what you can see just with the physical eyes, and it really opens you up to experiencing what a lot of people will pay a lot of money and go do ayahuasca for, that you can actually do naturally. And so that's always been my passion, is to teach people how to do that naturally, because when we can do it naturally and learn to hold consciousness in it, we get so much more out of it because we can bring it into our lives. So I like to say that the Ormus in all of our products, a lot of our products have Ormus in it, so you can absorb it through the skin as well. But that is like microdosing, but on a frequency level, that frequency is consistently being released from the pineal gland, and then you're having the experience of what your body is beyond. Because this is really interesting. DMT, the chemical, is also measured at 963 hertz. So it is the same frequency as source. And so it is part of the transcription of source within our DNA when we're born and then when we die.
It's a pretty amazing fact.
It's so
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah, that's great. So now you talked about absorbing it through your skin. Can you tell people a little bit more about that?
Yes, so I have a skincare line called BioQuantum, and we have one of our Ormuses is actually, we call it the Ormus Activator, and you can use it along with any skincare that you have. But we also have a couple of formulas that have the Ormus already in it. All of them are using the quantum technology, so your skin is absorbing on a cellular level the frequencies that is shifting how our cells are operating. So it's going from that distorted operating system into this higher divine operating system, or experiencing the body with all 12 strands of DNA working together, and then being able to have that experience consciously. One of the things that, just to break that down and make it really easy to understand what's happening, is that when you're absorbing through the skin, of course, you're absorbing it into your bloodstream, but on a frequency level, because it has the quantum technology, it's allowing the cells to shift from observing the environment, which we all know that's how our epigenetics get turned on, and we start to experience aging, or cell mutation, which is when we have disease and we start the leaping cycle that we've all created on this timeline of aging. But the truth is that we're not supposed to age. And because we are aging is because our cells are observing an environment that is programmed. Well, the frequencies of the quantum technology that's in all of our products is turning that inside out, so that the cell starts to identify as the frequency that's transcribed in the DNA, which is source frequency. And when it starts to identify as frequency is when those other 10 strands of DNA get turned on and the body starts to move multidimensionally.
Okay, well, you have to share your website at this point. So, okay, everybody, run to the website for your anti aging Ormus skincare.
There's a lot of fun things, but yes, it is at becomingbioquantum.com. And there's really a little something for everyone. We have the skincare, we have an amazing supplement, we have the Ormuses, and we have essential oils, and we have something, our little copper card, which is really fun. It has the DMT codes on it, so you can start to play with the frequencies. If you go to the resource page on our website, it's a great place to learn more about Ormus and about the different frequencies as well. If it's okay, I feel like I want to do a shout out for our supplement, because
Sure.
It is when I first started taking the supplement, I did the true diagnostic test, which is it measures your biological age to your telomere length. And in 10 months of taking that supplement and doing the coding, I was able to take my telomere age from 37 to 19 years old. That's what we're capable of. And I just really feel like it's worth saying that because that is not an easy thing to do. And I did not do anything different except for add those two things and do it consistently.
Wow. I think that that is pretty cool, and that's phenomenal information to know because when we come onto this planet, we have all these preconceived notions, or we're taught all these preconceived notions about how we operate, how we're supposed to function within society, how our bodies are supposed to move, how they're supposed to age. And it's really exciting that you are bringing forward all of these products, whether it's for skin or, internally taking these products, the Ormus, whatever it is, and reintroducing people back to the natural state of frequency.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, we already know that everything is frequency. And that's where just with a little bit of practice, it's one thing to have that awareness and even to see all of the studies of even on a quantum level with quantum biology or quantum physics, we've already proven this is true, yet we still look for evidence in our material world to identify within. And that continues to create that loop of timelines. Because if you think about what creates time, it's observation. And it's an observation of a looping cycle that's literally here to keep us stuck in that looping cycle. But it's a lot harder to put consciousness in something that we cannot see. But that's why it's my passion is to truly teach how to attune consciousness to a frequency and to shift reality and identify as frequency over form.
Beautiful. Now, I have another question, and then Maria, I promise I'll let you ask questions. But, as a practitioner, QHHT practitioner, Reiki practitioner, Touch for Health practitioner, how are you able to integrate all of these technologies into these particular modalities? Because I am sure that you do.
It's funny because I actually don't. I started studying all, I had my Reiki master by the time I was 17. I started studying at a very, very young age. And right around 30, I just heard the message was put it all away. And there's nothing else to learn except for to go inside. And so I did. I stopped reading books. I stopped listening to podcasts. I stopped listening to YouTube. And I went totally silent and I was given a modality. And so that's when everything kind of shifted for me. And then, of course, all of these other things started and here I am all these years later. But when it came to the quantum technology, the technology that I use, the basics of it, I actually was given when I was 5 years old and have used it in my life for that long. And that is the process of shifting the way the cells are operating. So it's kind of I just call it the inside out. So it's instead of hooking in and looking out here or even on a body level identifying as this to identifying as the frequency of source.
Okay, Maria, I fibbed. I have to ask one more question, a follow up
Go
question.
ahead.
Part B. Okay. So, how were you given this at the age of 5? I'm very curious.
Oh. So I call them the blue men, and they are blue. They're a white blue light. They have no faces. They do not talk. They're fairly telepathic. And when I was 5, they came to me, and that was what they gave me, were these 3 symbols. I used to call them my night lights because they are so bright that they light up the room. And of course, at the age of 5, it was just completely normal. They were my family. And as I grew older, they kind of faded in and out. And it was actually after my spine injury that they came in really strong, and they hang out. Like they're around. They'll come in when I do healings every once in a while and step in, and uh not like into me necessarily, but they will come in and help support that. So that is where they came from. I don't really talk about that very often, but um, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Maria.
There's a question coming up, and the question is, when you have a product, you can take it, so you can create a routine around that, or skin line, you can use it, you can create a routine around that. But when it comes to frequency and embodying the frequency, how do you, and so this is to share your opinion or how you've been able to do this. How do you bridge living in the frequency and being in the 3D? And being in a physical body and being in the environment that we are.
I love this question. So reality is the tool. Form is the tool. The reflection, the 3D, it's the tool. So when we're experienced with, this is the perfect way that I can explain it. So when you're applying, let's say, your skincare, and you're looking at your reflection in the mirror, and you may say, well, I have this, or I have this wrinkle, or this is happening. And so we identify within matter, or the 3D reality. Well, anytime there's 2 energies or a reflection, there's always a third, and that's source frequency. So I call it the 1 to the 2 to the 3. So once we have the reflection, we know what the program is. So I'm identifying as this, but I know that that's only 2 of 12 strands of DNA. I'm seeing this through a programmed reality. So we simply ask source intelligence, release the frequency of what's beyond this. And then we step back and we move our consciousness into that frequency that's released through our body. And then we move back into having the same experience, but we're having it through the frequency of source. It feels different every single time. And does that mean that we're having the full multidimensional experience? Well, no, but we're at least having an experience that we haven't had before. And we're learning to put our consciousness outside of just identifying in the 3D reality. And we start to identify from higher space states, because just because we're here in the 3rd dimension doesn't mean that that's the experience that we're here to have. I can say for myself, I know that's not what the experience I'm here to have. I'm here to use the 3D reality to ascend beyond the 3D reality. It's just a tool. It doesn't mean that it's all that's real. And I feel like that statement in itself is a choice for each and every one of us. Some of us might want to have a 3D reality and they want to limit their experience to that. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a personal choice. For me, I'm here to not only master what we call the 3D reality, but actually live beyond that. And that is one of the easiest tools to start opening ourselves up consciously on a physical level. Because I promise you, if you go and do that tool that I just gave you, you're going to see yourself differently. You're going to start to see beyond what you're seeing in the mirror. And it's a really fun way to open yourself up to just how multidimensional you really are.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I have another follow-up question to that, because we've been talking about frequency, and I also talk about that frequency, and I also do trauma healing. So how would a person who has experienced trauma what would their approach be in embodying the new frequency? Because sometimes it's just simply saying embody the new frequency. That's not enough, right? So what would your approach be, or what are your thoughts around how can they use this for deep trauma?
Right. So I feel the first thing is to identify the trauma of and then be able to shift it into not having that be the only identifier, right? Because I feel like that's one of the biggest leaps with trauma is that the identity of that experience becomes the program itself. And to shift out of that program, we have to replace it with a higher frequency identity. So in the beginning is to reprogram on a cellular level by simply shifting identity. Because when we do it on a cellular level, we are teaching on the cells that they can actually be something different. So instead of holding the cellular memory of the trauma, you can actually reprogram the cells to hold the frequency of, let's say, I'm worthy or I am lovable. And when we start to then hold consciousness in that new identity through the body, it's a lot easier to do it than to reprogram the mind, because the body knows how to shift much quicker because it's holding an intelligence that's outside of our understanding, that source frequency. And then all of a sudden, when we do this over and over again, we actually just start to forget what it was to be in the identity of that trauma. And we start to identify in the frequency of this new identity. And then in time, we can actually shift from identity to identifying in frequency. So does it happen overnight? For some people, yes, it does. For other people, it takes a while, depending on how identified they are in the trauma itself. But I do find reprogramming on a cellular level, it happens so much faster. And I want to just say here as well is we're so identified in emotion being something that needs to be deeply processed. I believe that emotion is there to be mastered. And this is why I say that, because emotion is a chemical response of the body. It is the distorted operating system of the body. Feeling, what comes after emotion, is what we just talked about, the program that is responding to a triggered response. When we start to actually understand the body and understand what emotion is and understand that a feeling is just a program, and we learn to not be allow it to absorb and then to actually create the storyline that's behind that, but to just observe and then to allow the emotion to pass through in that 90 seconds later, and then learn to hold our consciousness in a higher frequency, we can move into a much higher state of understanding of how our body is operating. And it's a lot easier to bypass, and I don't want to say bypassed, but to over the trauma response, because we understand how our body is operating. And that's when we can start to release these higher frequencies and know that our consciousness has a choice in that moment. I can either go into my programming and have that experience again, or I can turn on this higher frequency and attune my consciousness to something that I don't know who I am. And that's harder to do. It's not easy. And it is a commitment and a practice. But in that practice, quantum physics has already proven this. What we focus on becomes our reality. With a little bit of practice and able to shift consciousness from a program to an abstract frequency, we can shift out of trauma instantly. It's just you have to know how to do it. That becomes a tool of consciousness. I'll leave it
So,
at that.
how do you see all of these tools playing in an individual's ascension process?
First, they have to learn them, right? Like once we learn the tools, it becomes the practice, and it's not something that we just do once. You know, attuning consciousness is a lifelong practice. But I think it's important to say consciousness is also a tool. Consciousness is the ability to have awareness. But once we have that awareness, what we do with our consciousness is everything, because otherwise we're consistently shifting into different levels of awareness. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, we want to do that. But there comes a time where to truly advance, we have to learn to attune our consciousness to that frequency that's stored on a DNA level, meaning that we're not always searching for the awareness, but we're attuning. So once we have that information of like looking in the mirror and seeing the wrinkle, and then we ask for the frequency to be released, what do we do then? Well, we don't go searching in that frequency, we match it just like you would a piano. So when you're trying to tune a piano, you're matching two frequencies, and once they match, they harmonize and they become one. Well, that's the last part of the 1 to the 2 to the 3 is the one. You go into oneness with the frequency of source, and you hold your consciousness there in that stillness. And when we do that, we start to identify as that frequency, and that frequency has an intelligence, and then we start to experience life as frequency. Well, what does that look like? Intuition. We stop using our physical senses and we start to open up multidimensionally, where we see without seeing, we hear without hearing, we know without knowing, and we sense without emotion. Everything becomes an intelligence and a way of processing very high frequency information.
Awesome, thank you. And now you spoke about learning the techniques. Do you share a variety of techniques in the books that you have written? You want to tell people about that?
Yes, of course. So we go through the basics, and I would say the one of the fun ones is to kind of look at or is the 5 states of consciousness that's connected to the 5 bodies. So the first 3 levels of consciousness, I'll just go through them really quickly. It is, of course, just not being conscious at all would be a level of consciousness, and we all are going to be in that stage and at different times, just because we're always becoming conscious of different levels of frequency. Then there's the waking up, and then the third level of consciousness is where a lot of people will get stuck. It's after you woke up, and then you have that choice. And in that choice, let's say I don't prefer the job that I'm in, so I'm going to choose to quit my job and I'm going to manifest a new job. And then we go and we try to make it happen, but we try to make it happen from the programming of the 3rd dimensional reality, our program body, our program mind. And then all of a sudden we're right back where we started, or we're really struggling to make things happen. The 4th level of consciousness is that listen and do. And then the 5th level of consciousness is when our consciousness is at one with source frequency, and we are the intelligence of source. All of those will know exactly what level of consciousness we are in by what we're experiencing in our body. So if we're identifying as our body, we're unconscious. If we're identifying of like, oh, I know I'm more than the body, then we're in that 2nd level of consciousness. And the 3rd level of consciousness is when we are saying, I know I should be able to heal instantly. But then it doesn't happen because we're identifying in the very program that created whatever it is that we're experiencing. When we move into that 4th level of consciousness, our body starts to open up and we become multidimensional, and we start to experience spontaneous healing. We start to experience like, oh my gosh, I can actually maybe put my hand through a piece of paper. I can bend a spoon, all the fun things that we see in the Matrix. It's all real. And then, of course, the 5th level of consciousness would be full bioquantum, in that you are experiencing all 12 strands of DNA consciously within the body. So that's just one tool, but it's a tool. Why? Because you're identifying where you're holding consciousness.
Beautiful. And which book will people find this in?
Bioquantum.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now we have a question for you from the audience. This is, how do you step into your own power and remove the energetic blocks?
your body is the most advanced technology that there is. And one thing that I find is really, really fun is that when we start searching for answers outside of ourselves and we start to learn to go inside. And one of the fun ways of being able to do that is like a lot of people at least know Google. Some of us are starting to tap into the ChatGPT. When you start to learn to prompt your body, just like you would an AI system. So for instance, I want to know what it feels like to be empowered. So you would put that just like you would put on a computer screen. Instead, shut your eyes and say, I want to know what it feels like to feel empowered from the purest place of source. Release that frequency now. And then just allow it to turn on. So you're not doing it through your mind. You know what would be fun is to do just a quick exercise to show the difference between those first 3 levels of consciousness and the upper 2 levels of consciousness. Do we have time to just, it takes like 30 seconds.
Sure.
It's hard at
No
all.
problem.
Okay, so everybody shut their eyes and imagine a sunflower. Just imagine what it looks like. And if you're not good at imagery, then just ask to feel a sunflower and just like what it would feel like to be in a sunflower field and just let that come in. All right, now open your eyes and shake it out. Now shut your eyes again and ask that the frequency of source from your DNA release what a sunflower is in the frequency of source. And just notice how it feels different in your body. The image may or may not be different. And then you can just open your eyes. So when you're asking to know what it feels like to feel empowered from the frequency of source, you're not trying to make anything happen with your mind. You're allowing that frequency to release, and then you're staying open to having the experience of the shift in your body of what that feels like. And then when we do that, something starts to happen. Your body actually uploads that frequency into your quantum body or your operating system, and it starts to run just like in a computer system. It starts to run that frequency. And the more that you ask, and then you stay open and curious to what that experience is like, the more that your operating system, which is your divine operating system, it's you, it's still you, it's just you at 100%, will start to give you the experience of what that is. And then we no longer are leaping, because when we start to put our consciousness in what we're becoming, because we're allowing this frequency to shift our reality, everything starts to change, because we're always looking through that higher perspective, because everything in life becomes the feedback of what we prompted. So just like an AI, you asked for an experience, and that the AI is going to give you the feedback of what is and isn't the answer to what your question is. And then life just becomes magical, because everything is just information. It's nothing to be judged. It's just showing you this is an alignment and this is. What does it make you feel? Follow the places that light you up and make you want to go into expansion and love. And the rest of them, choose not to repeat them. Like if it's a thought that I don't love myself, is that working for you? Well, no. Okay, so now next time that thought comes up that I don't love myself, what do you love? Well, I love when I'm walking my dog. Perfect. That's one thing that you love about yourself. I love the feeling when I walk my dog. So I'm going to focus on that instead. Now we can go back to quantum physics. We've already proven what you focus on becomes your reality. And we always have in every single moment the choice. And sometimes it's not easy, especially when a program has sucked us down the rabbit hole and we're trying to get back up. But just because we still feel like crap and we're choosing to love that part of us that likes the feeling of when we're walking our dog doesn't mean that you're not shifting your reality in those moments. If we're always focusing on if I don't feel amazing, that I'm not changing, then you will consistently loop. When we know that we're changing just by choosing not to focus on the things that make us not feel good, because when we choose in those moments, I don't feel good, but I'm going to choose something different. I'm going to choose to love myself and put my focus over here. I still am going to feel like crap, but this is what I'm going to focus on. And in that moment, you are reprogramming your reality. You're reprogramming your body. You're inviting that frequency to come into you, and then it becomes a practice.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question. Then I have a question about the academy that I'll get to in a moment. But it said, can one's beliefs or doubts get in the way of having these quantum experiences? And how best to change the belief or drop the doubt? Thank you.
So I feel like there's like 3 steps to that. So first, of course, is having the conscious awareness that the belief is there. And that's always first, because if we don't have that awareness, there's not a choice to actually change. But once we recognize that we're in a looping cycle or a program, then we simply choose what do I want to believe? And at least replace your belief system, because what you're doing is you're giving that belief system a new identity. So if it's, I believe that I'm in lack and I'll never manifest that $10,000 a month that I so want to have in my life. Well, what do I prefer to believe? I believe that I'm infinite, that I can manifest $10,000 a month. That's what I'm going to replace my belief with. Okay, perfect. So now we're in a belief, we're in a new belief, a higher frequency belief. Then we have to shift to faith. Okay, now because I'm not holding that frequency to where I'm having the reflection of that reality yet, I have to hold faith. I have to be in faith that eventually that's going to happen, and I'm going to focus on having faith. Well, what happens when you're in faith? Doubt comes in. So being able to choose faith over doubt is another choice. And when the doubt comes in, it's like, oh yeah, but I'm choosing to have faith. And I may still feel really uncomfortable when I'm choosing faith, but I'm going to choose that because I know doubt will bring me back into the reality that I'm shifting out of. So again, I may have to make that choice 10 times a day, and it's not always going to be easy. But then what eventually happens is that faith becomes a knowing, meaning I may not be able to see that reality yet, but my body already knows that it's there. My body understands that it's almost shocking that it's not in my reality, because my body feels it so strongly. You've embodied the frequency, and then you live within that embodiment until you hit the timeline where it's already happened. I think that what's really interesting in this is that when we get to that place of purity and we have a thought of what it is that we want to manifest, if we hold our consciousness in the purity of what that is, it comes instantly. That's really the true nature of what we're supposed to experience, because we're able to hold our consciousness in a purity where duality doesn't exist. So where we are on the timeline of that purity will be how long it takes for us to shift. And that's how easy it can be, is awareness, shift the belief, move into faith, choose that over doubt over and over until it's embodied, and then you experience it.
Thank you so much. And the last question. What about the Quantum Academy's new platform?
Oh, somebody is on here knows about our shift. So, yes, I'm actually really excited about this. So, one of my passions is building community, and that community has the opportunity to connect with each other. And so, I have been praying for this for such a long time, and it just fell in my lap. And so, we are shifting over to a platform that is community based, and it has kind of a social media feel. So once you become a community member, and you don't actually have to be in a course or a membership, you can actually just be a member. And it has kind of a feed, just like a Facebook, where you can connect to other members of BioQuantum Academy. And it also has a place where you can actually see if you have somebody that maybe lives close to you. So if you wanted to have coffee with somebody that is part of a high vibe frequency, you could reach out just because they're in the community, and set up different things like that. So my hope is that the community will get really, really big, and that people will be studying consciousness and activating their quantum body and having the experience, and then be able to meet others within their community where they can go do a hike or go for coffee and do these fun things in person.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for coming and sharing all of your knowledge with us. I know everyone will benefit, so you may want to go back and watch this again or share it with your friends because, as you know, our Conscious Awakening Network has about 40 different platforms, and you can easily find this episode on YouTube. So when you watch that, hit like, subscribe, make an awesome comment about how awesome Jules was and all the information that she brought forward. And we would really appreciate that. And before we do close, Jules, do you have any final comments that you would like to make or share with people? And then, Maria, I'll have you to do the same.
Mm, let's see. Well, I guess, oh, I don't know. I would just say start exploring your body as a technology and a divine molecular technology. Start to explore by asking it questions. And when you have thoughts come up of like, well, how do I get past this? Just go inside and ask the question. It just like that sunflower exercise. Allow that frequency to release, and start exploring what it is to live within this higher operating system of your body, and let it blow your mind, really. Like, let it just go as far out there as you possibly can allow it. And then just sit back in awe of what you're capable of actually tapping into consciously and experiencing it in your body, because you really are unlimited. And when we start to see ourselves in that way, we start to have evidence of that, right? And it's just a little bit of practice. So I think that that's where I would kind of sum that up.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And Maria.
Yeah, I would second that. I'd say everything is available to us. Healing ourselves, manifesting the life that we desire, living life by design, living in the place of joy and happiness. Everything is available to us. We have no limits. And it's all about the, moving into the awareness, making that choice, the embodiment, and then the practice. Being in that practice, being in the frequency. And then the daily shifts will happen for everyone. So yeah, I encourage everybody to try it, be in the space within and feel the expansion within yourself, be in this space of receiving and just see what's possible for you. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And before you go, if you'll let everyone know where they can find you.
Yes, 360 Prosperity. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Jules, for joining us. And thank you, everybody, for being here. So much fun when we have an audience. 360 Prosperity. You can also find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, 360 Prosperity is my handle, or Maria Martinez.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Maria, and thank you for agreeing to be my co-host all month.
Yeah,
I
thank
look
you.
forward to sharing all our Monday nights together
Me
in
too. Thank
November.
you.
And I do want to share one more thing with everyone. I have to promote my new book that's just come out, Cosmic Convergence. It's the journey of walk-ins, starseeds, and hybrids. And this is where we really drop in and take a deep look at, the multidimensionality of not just walk-in starseeds and hybrids, but humanity as a whole. And we start to look at the timelines that affect us and the dimensions and the densities and all of the different aspects of the universe. So I would love for you guys to check it out. It is on Amazon right now with an official early launch. We really don't officially launch until November 22nd. But Barbara and I are very, very excited about the book. And if you do check it out, please leave us a review on Amazon. We would really appreciate that. And speaking of appreciation, this is the month of appreciation, the month of gratitude. So, try to drop into yourself. Try to find something that really lights you up, that brings you joy, that, really pulls that passion out in you, and try to stay in that frequency for the whole month, just kind of as a little personal exercise for yourself. And then when we come back, of course, we'll see you every week, but in December, you can take an assessment of, how did the month of November's frequencies change you because of these higher frequencies that you're choosing on a daily basis to walk in. So let's just try to, practice that a little bit this month and incorporate those awesome tools that Jules has provided to you tonight. So everybody, thank you again so much for being here. And until we are back together again, namaste. Much love, everybody. And we will see you soon. Thanks so much.